Good to see you again today. Good to be with you today. You know, I was outside and I was listening to a Jewish fella. He's talking to his son. His son said, "Dad, could I have $50? And the Jewish dad said, "Son, how could I give you $45? What are you going to do with $30? Where are you going to spend $20? What's worth $5? You know? You know, you may not realize... You may not realize this, but I've written a lot on the King James Version myself. I really have. I've written a lot. I've got it right here. On this side of it, I've got some of Brother Hyles' sermon notes. Over here's where I doodled a little bit when I was bored. Here's a note from my wife. I've written a lot on the King James. I really have. You know, we have a lady in our church, and she's got such big lips that Chapstick had to come out with a spray. I've written a couple of things on you may be a charismatic. If your idea of building a great work for God is building an amusement park with a water slide, you may be a charismatic. Another one is if you think Christian service is being a designated driver, you may be a charismatic. You know, I was thinking the other day, if it wasn't for half of the people in this world, the other half would be everybody. And I was in a grocery store the other day, and I went through the cereal aisle, and I saw there a bunch of Cheerios with bullet holes through it. I knew immediately I was dealing with the serial killer. You know, the doctor told me, he said, if you start jogging, it'll add 10 years to your life. And sure enough, I feel 10 years older already. You know, for the life of me, I've been trying to figure out why it is that kamikaze pilots wear helmets. Fella came to me the other day. He said, "Hey," he said, "how do you like that mud pack I got for your wife?" I said, "Well, it's okay, except I can't figure out how to keep it on her face." Recently, I went to preach at a church, and I got there, there's only 10 people there, and I said to the preacher, I said, "I thought you ran 300 in church. Didn't you tell the people I was coming?" He said, "No, but it must have leaked out anyhow." It happens to Dennis Coral all the time. And we have a man in our church, he's so old, he gets winded just playing checkers. You know, recently I've had to cut a lot of my messages short. I've had a lot of throat trouble. People have been threatening to cut it. There's a man in our church who makes stained glass contact lenses for people who want to sleep in church. And I've come out with a new Bible for blondes. Yep, none of the words are more than one syllable. I've also come up with a scratch and sniff Bible. You can now smell the rose of Sharon, the lily of the valley, but trust me, don't try the manger scene. I've got a very valuable manuscript with me today. This is really valuable. This here is a bus kid Bible. It's a bus kid Bible from 1963. It's even got some of the blood of the bus workers still on it. Let me ask you, how much did your Bible cost you? I've also come up with a new politically correct Bible. One chapter has Jesus healing the visually impaired man. We also have Zacchaeus, the vertically challenged man. Well, the man... If y'all quit laughing at me, I could do this a little better. We have the maniac of Gadara struggling to express his inner self. Now the thing I'm excited about this next one. Nobody's ever seen this before. You've never seen it anywhere, I promise you, you've never seen it anywhere. All week we've been talking about where are the original manuscripts. I found them. I have them right here today. I have the original manuscripts right here with me. You wondered where they are. This is it, right here. Yes, sir. Right there. Oh, there's Matthew. Yeah. There's John. Oh, there it is. Genesis. Oh, no, don't anybody dust. No, please. We just lost them again. Oh. Look, they'll be at the altar if you want to look at them afterwards. Excuse me. I hope that all the things I brought to you be a help to your ministry. God bless you.
Boy, oh boy. Just think, on my pulpit, the original manuscript. And they're as good as the ones that Custer has, too, by the way. I feel like it's sacrilegious for some reason. I feel terrible. This is the way that the New King James folks brushed off the truth. All right. Brother Roy Moffat's going to come and speak to us. This is the 15th and last of the discussions about the old Jack Hyles. I'm glad they're over. And but Brother Moffat's going to talk about Jack Hyles, the person. Now, what in the world he's going to be about? The old Jack Hyles, the person. But Brother Moffat's been with me now for many years. He came to our church. You're saved here not long after I came, weren't you? What year?
I was saved in 1966.
1966, and I'm real proud of Brother Moffat. He hasn't come to this thing naturally. He went to Hyles Anderson College. Brother Moffat was an athlete here in the area. He's from this area. He was an athlete and came to our church, got saved, but it didn't come easy for him. He went to Hyles Anderson College, came to the office one night, and he said, I'm going to quit. I just cannot pass. I'm not sharp enough. I cannot study enough. I cannot pass. And I said, yeah, you're going to go back to school. You're going to pass. You're going to graduate. And I ate stuffings out of him. And I said, you're going to go back. And he did go back, and he did graduate. Now for many years, how long? 22 years on our staff, and my good pal. He and I cut up an awful lot. He's a character, and so we enjoy each other a great deal, and I love him, and he'll talk to you for the next 30 minutes.
I consider it a great privilege and honor that I can talk on the person of Dr. Jack Hyles. That's basically the qualities and personality of Brother Hyles. And I tell you, he's the kind of guy that really enjoys life. I think you all experience that by being around here and being here for pastor's school. Brother Hyles, he's my buddy, he's my pastor, he's my friend, he's my prayer warrior. But really, I see Brother Hyles as a real person. He's a well-rounded person. If you get to know Brother Hyles, you see so many different qualities in Brother Hyles. In Proverbs chapter 17, verse 22, it talks about a merry heart doeth good like a medicine. You think about that, Brother Hyles is a medicine just about anywhere he goes. I mean, he just makes you feel good. Whenever you're around him, you enjoy being around Brother Hyles. And today, what I did is I just got some letters out of the alphabet, decided I'm going to use the letter C, and I tried to coming up with some words that really describe Brother Hyles. And I believe these different words are going to help you to see Brother Hyles through the eyes of Roy Moffett. First of all, he's a companion. Now, y'all have companions. You like to be around your friends. You like to be around a companion. And that's basically what Brother Hyles is. He's a companion, but there's many other things. He's the kind of guy that he likes to joke around with people. He likes to have fun. He likes to laugh. In our staff meetings, he said we sometimes joke around, and he and I joke around quite often. One day, I was given a little bit of a hard time in a staff meeting, and he says, Roy, why don't you go measure the parking lot? You know, that was just to get rid of me. At one time, I had to go measure the parking lots here. We were getting ready to set up some tents, and I was gone for about a half hour. So in one of our particular meetings, we were going at it a little bit, and he says, Roy, why don't you go measure the parking lot? So I just disappeared for a while. I came back, and so every once in a while, he'll say that, and he said, Roy, why don't you go measure the parking lot? So after that, I just reached in my wallet, and I said, which parking lot do you want to know, preacher? I have them right here. So he can't say that anymore. Well, one time we were going at it again, and it ended up he said, well, what do you have to say about that? I said that to him. I said, well, what do you have to say about that? And he says, you're fired. I says, well, I was looking for a job before I started here anyhow. Now, not too many people can get by with that, but it's just the companionship that I see with Brother Hyles. One time he walked back, this is just about 4 weeks ago, he walked in our staff meeting and he looked at me real stern. He says, what are you looking at? I said, you know, preacher, that's exactly what I was thinking about. What am I looking at? Now, that's what a companion is. You like to be around him. Serious, you like to be around Brother Hyles. Now, one time we went to a basketball game, and he likes to have fun. We were at this basketball game, and here's some big guy, big bearded guy that definitely would go good as a Santa Claus. And Bob Hooker was with this group, and he said to Bob Hooker, he says, Bob, I'll buy you a new suit if you go to that guy and sit on his lap and tell him what you'd like to have for Christmas. So Bob thought, man, a new suit, that's worth it. I'm going to do that. So he walked to this guy and he told him, he says, hey, somebody challenged me and I'm wanting to sit in your lap and I'm going to tell you what I want for Christmas. And if I do that, he's going to get me a new suit. And that guy looked at Bob Hooker like he's going to knock his head off. And he didn't let Bob sit on his lap. So Bob didn't get the new suit, but he sure did make a fool out of himself. Just about 3 weeks ago, Brother Hyles asked me, I have a different office, I've been in about a year now, and he asked me, he says, Roy, how do you like your new office? And I said, oh, I love it, preacher. He said, do you really? And I said, yes. He said, well, I didn't think you'd like the location. And I said, oh, I love the location. It's right by my Sunday school class and so on. And I said, preacher, you've never seen my office. Would you like to see it? And he said, sure, I'd like to see it. So I took him in there, and we walked around, and in fact, it is a nice office, and he says, boy, this is nicer than you deserve. And I had to agree with him, but there's a big fish in my wall, probably about, this is a real fish story, it's bigger than that, it's longer than that, it's probably close to 7 foot long. And he looked at that fish and he says, boy, where did you get that fish? And I told him a big lie. I says, preacher, I was in Florida, and I was speaking for a fellow by the name of Von Faust. He's out there in Florida, and he asked me if I wanted to go deep sea fishing. And so I told him, sure, I'd be glad to go deep sea fishing. And here we're out there fishing, and I caught this big fish, and I had that on the end of the line. And I'm telling you, I struggled, preacher, and worked and worked and worked. And when I got that fish on that boat, I'm telling you, I was so exhausted, I couldn't hardly preach that night. Well, the fish in my office is his fish that he caught. That he used that exact story one time and said, I was so tired after I caught that thing, I couldn't hardly preach that night. And he said, I'd never do that again. So I told him this whole story, and he's acting like he's believing me. And then finally he says, you know, I'd sure like to catch a big fish like that sometime. and I said, preacher, I think I could work that out for you. I'll call Von Faust and tell him that you'd like to catch a big fish like that. And as I'm talking like that, he starts like this. He says, it's getting kind of deep in here. And that was how he walked out of my office. Now, about a year ago, Brother Hyles preached a real good message. He always preaches a good message, by the way. And hey, let me finish. Shut up. And this will prove that I meant what I said there. He preaches a good message all the time. And I said, you know, preacher, I've been here. I actually visited here in 1961 and started going on a regular basis in 1964. And I says, you know, preacher, since I've visited here in 1961 up till now, I have yet to hear you blow it when it comes to preaching a message. And he goes like this, oh, I think that was a compliment. Acting like he was about to have a heart attack, and as if I was giving him a compliment there. Now, that's the companionship of Brother Hyles. He's just a lot of fun. He's the kind of guy you like to be around. But he's also a man that is a very compassionate man. Don't ever play that short with Brother Hyles. He's a very compassionate man. One time last year, I had a PSA test. That's a prostate test, basically checking for cancer. I've had some problems in that area. And Brother Hyles asked me 5 times before I finally got the results. He says, Roy, have you heard anything yet? Roy, how you doing? Roy, did they call you yet? What's taking them so long? And he was asking me, and honest, this is what I thought. I thought, wow, preacher is more concerned about my health than I am. Maybe he's hoping I'd die. No, no, not a chance, not seriously. But I was really impressed with that. I thought, wow, he is really concerned about me. Then one time my wife was in the hospital, and every time he'd see me, I'd walk into his office, and he says, Roy, how's JoJo? How's your wife doing? How's JoJo doing? Now, there's thousands of people in First Baptist Church, but when I walked into his office, he just wanted to let me know that he was thinking about me or thinking about my wife. That shows that he's a very compassionate man. We had a Dodge van, nice big Dodge Ram Charge, one of these with the nice fold-down seats and all that. Nice van. Only thing, I couldn't afford the payments after I bought it. Got a little head over heels in the payments in my van and some other payments, and I was starting to go under a little bit. And I went to see Preacher, and I said, Preacher, I'm in trouble. I said, I bought a van, and I'm having a hard time making payments on it. And he says, Roy, why don't you let me take over the payments? I'll just take over the van, and let me just have the van, and I'll take over the payments. And he did. He used it as his own personal van here at First Baptist Church for a while, and then later on he ended up giving that away to somebody. That shows you, Dr. Jack Hyles. One time my wife, she was having some problems, and we need to go to Mayo Clinic, and he ended up just telling me, because we had money to take care of as far as insurance goes, but as far as staying there, you're lodging up there and buying food and so on and so forth. He said, Roy, let me help you to pay for some of the expenses while you're there. That's just a little bit of the compassion that I see through Brother Hyles, that other people have the same opportunities, and he's not just doing it to Roy Moffett, he's doing it to the other people here also. This is something that many of you do not see. I see the compassion of Dr. Jack Hyles when he's preaching. I sit right there. That's my chair. And when I sit on that platform, many times, I see tears trickling down the eyes of Brother Hyles while he's preaching. You might think, boy, he's a hard preacher. You're right, he is a hard preacher. But there's many a times while he's preaching hard, his heart is going out to those people, and his heart is just breaking as he's preaching because he loves those people, and he's just showing you a little bit of his compassion that he has. There's times that after pastor's school, and some of you have experienced that from the pulpit here, you'll see him. At the closing of pastor's school, he'd have a staff meeting. and he'd get to discussing, and he'd totally lose it. He'd be crying, and he'd lose it. Just, folks, some of these people are heading back home for problems. Some of these people need wisdom to know what to do. And you could just see his heart and how he loves you. You know, you're his people. He loves you. And this is like a big homecoming. And when my daughter moved to California, I remember how I cried. Why? Because I'm going to miss her. And you folks are going to leave. And he's going to cry. And it's not over anything but the compassion and the love that he has for these people that are in this room right here. He's a man of great compassion. Many of the people, the special people, some of the retarded, there's certain retarded people that just hang around just to see Brother Hyles, the one that Brother Hyles teases about, Wilbur Hoover, the one that's going to marry my wife. That's already settled. I talked to Brother Hyles about that yesterday, and in fact, he said, I think Jojo would be better off, Roy. But we have a couple of kids here at First Baptist Church. A kid, I can remember him riding on our Sunday school bus in the 60s. Eddie Velasquez, still in our Pathfinder department. He opens up the door for Brother Hyles every service, and he always talks to Eddie. He talks to Wilbur. He talks to a little David Depper, a little young man who has a very crippling disease, and some children that are just special children that the parents have them out for Brother Hyles just to greet him, and he can show his love. Now, another thing about Brother Hyles, dealing with the letter C, he's a good Christian. Hey, when your wife can say that I think he is the greatest Christian in the world, that in itself tells you a lot. And Mrs. Hyles, I've heard her say that I believe my husband is the greatest Christian in the world. A man prays at least 20 hours a week, spends many hours in his Bible, meditating on God's Word, constantly asking the Holy Spirit's power upon his life, and always asking the Lord to give him love so he can just show that love to his people. He always asks the Lord to control his mind. You think about that. He's a courageous man. Some of you folks, you're going to go home, you're not going to have the nerve to get on this King James issue. There's too many people in your church that have those other heathen Bibles, and you don't know what's going to happen. And you don't have the nerve to get on it yet. He's a very courageous man. He's going to stand for what he knows is right. Quite a few years ago now, here in Calumet City, one of our professors at Hyles Anderson College was stopped for soul winning, and he was told that he couldn't go soul winning in Calumet City unless he had a permit. They asked him if he had a permit. He didn't have one. They said, well, you have to have a permit if you're going to go soul winning here in Calumet City. So they ended up contacting the church. He actually went to jail for that, and we had to get him out and so on. And they ended up calling Brother Hyles, and Brother Hyles talked to the mayor, and the mayor says, I'm sorry, but your people, when they visit here in Calumet City, will have to have a permit. And Brother Hyles says, well, I don't think that they should have to have a permit. And he says, well, they're going to have to if they visit here in Calumet City. And Brother Hyles says, well, our people are not going to get a permit to visit in Calumet City. If they want to go soul winning, they're going to go soul winning. And he says, well, I'm telling you right now, preacher, if he does, he called him Reverend, he says, I'm telling you now, if they do go visiting here in Calumet City, we're going to put them in jail. Brother Hyles says, well, Mayor, if that's the way you feel, then you better get your jails ready, because I'm going to send at least 3,000 soul winners to your city this week. Now, some of you folks would be going to the city hall getting your permits, but he's a man that is very courageous. We got a permit right here. God's commission is go into all the world and teach and preach the gospel. That's for all of us. That's for every one of us. Now, he's willing to stand against the millionaires. Oh, wow. You better skip over that one real quick. Had millionaires in his church willing to stand for the bus kids. Trade the millionaires for the bus kids. God will bless you when you do right. God will bless you when you stand for right. He was willing to stand against the Southern Baptist Convention. He had courage enough to take a stand against the Southern Baptist Convention. He's a man of convictions. Such a man of convictions, he's willing to die for his convictions. Those are some things that you can learn about a great preacher like Brother Hyles. He's a man who has control over his mind. Has great control over his mind. One time, when I first got on staff, you live and learn. I had one of my first meetings with Brother Hyles. After I finished the meeting, I said, "Preacher, I'd like for you to do something as a favor. The next time we meet, I'd like for you to be thinking of some ideas about the A-bus ministry, and when I get back the next time, we'll talk about those ideas." He says, "Roy, that's why I hired you." And so I thought, well, that's really not the way I'm hoping this thing works out. And he says, "Roy, if you want to talk about the A-bus ministry, the next time you come to my office, when we have a set meeting for the A-bus ministry, we'll talk about it. But when you walk out of my office, I'm going to forget about the A-bus ministry. I'm not going to be thinking about the A-bus ministry. You need to realize that I have foster club and fisherman's club and jail ministry and rest home ministry and college and counseling. I have all kind of people in this church that are waiting out there, or they're going to be coming into my office. When I'm dealing with those people, I need to be thinking about those people, and I need to be thinking about that problem at that time, not what we're going to do in the A-bus ministry. What am I going to do at Hyles Anderson College? What am I going to do about the church? When am I going to get ready for my sermon?" He says, "Roy, if I just thought about the different things that go on here at First Baptist Church just whenever I felt like it," he says, "by now I'd be a crazy man." Really, you think about that. All the things that go on here at First Baptist Church, and how can he get all that done? It's tremendous mind control, and Brother Hyles does. He has a tremendous way of controlling the things that he thinks about, scheduling his time thinking about certain things that he wants to talk about. One time I heard one thing he does not like to hear, negative. "Brother Hyles, you know what? I heard somebody say this about you." Now, this goes back a long time ago. And I thought, boy, preacher needs to hear this. And big revelation, newsflash, I thought, preacher, you need to hear this. And I said, "You know what, preacher, somebody said this." And I started to tell him. And immediately he stopped me. He says, "Roy, the Lord knows. He'll take care of it." I thought he was going to stop right there. Who said that? When did he say that? Where did he say that? Did he really? That was my thinking. Maybe get a few brownie points by telling him something that I thought he needed to know. No way. He immediately just said, "Roy, the Lord knows. He'll take care of it." There's been times we've had some battles here at the church. About 5 years ago, we had some folks that kind of turned on Brother Hyles. You know what? He didn't want to listen to the garbage. He says, "Many of you folks out here, and many of you guys here in this staff, you know more about me than I do. I don't want to hear it." He says, "I have some people that I need to preach to. And I don't need that garbage going through my mind, thinking about what some idiot said about me. My people need me to have a fresh mind when I'm out there preaching." He has a tremendous way of controlling his mind, and I tell you, I really respect him for that. He's a very comforting person. Folks, we used to demonstrate how he would have funerals. That man will many times have a 3 or 4 page poem about this person that just passed away. Now, you try that sometime. And he has a very comforting message. One day, I see Brother Auclair up there right now. We're walking out of the funeral. The dead corpse is right here, and we're walking out together, and we're walking out going that way. Brother Auclair said to me, you have to know Brother Auclair also. He says, "I can't wait until I die." He says, "I can't wait until I hear what Brother Hyles is going to say about me." If Brother Hyles was around, he'd have probably said, "I can't wait either," kind of hoping that he would die. No. Another thing about Brother Hyles, he's a very caring man. Very caring man. One day, and you know how sometimes you see somebody, they stub their toe and you kind of laugh? How many of you have done that before? Oh, you're all good Christians. You don't do things like that, right? Well, one of our deacons here at First Baptist Church, a man that everybody loved at First Baptist Church, Brother John Penley, big guy, about 6'3", 250 pounds, real big guy. He was walking down the stairs right outside where my office is now, and he bumped his head on that beam. It's a low beam, and a guy that tall could bump his head. And he hit his head, but I didn't